Greetings, travelers, and welcome back to the Tales from the Enchanted Forest podcast with your hosts, Fox and Sparrow.
Heyo! Man, I know we've been talking a lot about fall recently because of the fall vibes, but I think it's going to start snowing today, and I'm super excited for that prospect.
Yes, that's the perfect thing about November is when you have those days where it snows and it's so cozy.
Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked about all sorts of things we want to do with, like, the fall vibe and, like, what stories we crave from it. In the early to mid-fall, when there's, like, build-up to Halloween, I know we love mystery and spooky or, like, crime stories. But after Halloween passes, I find, like, there's different types of stories that come to mind that I'm, like, craving. So, like, Gilmore Girls aside, because I know we've brought it up a bunch as like a classic fall vibe, is there something about it that just stands out as fall for some reason? Is there any stories that you crave, Fox, post Halloween but before Christmas?
Bella, where you been, Loca? Do you get the reference?
Bella? No.
You don't get the reference? Oh my god. Twilight.
Oh no. Oh, Bella.
Yes.
Like Twilight.
Yes.
Bella, where have you been, Loca?
Yeah, it's okay, so in the movie there's a scene where Jacob comes up to her and he goes, Bella, where you been, Loca? And it's been a meme on Instagram and TikTok for a while now. Because it's just so out of place. But I mean, everything about the Twilight movies is a parody of itself.
Yeah.
But I think so. I know a lot of people watch, like, Harry Potter and Twilight before Halloween, but I kind of enjoy them after Halloween, mainly because I don't know why. So in my head, there's a clear divide between Halloween movies, which is like Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town, The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I've only seen once because I'm afraid of claymation. And then there are like Christmas movies. And then the Christmas movies are the ones that are like Home Alone and all of the rom-coms that have Christmas themes. And then there's also all of like the animated movies that are based around Christmas. Like I think Claus, really liked Claus, Rise the Guardians, I would classify as a Christmas movie. Obviously Barbie the Nutcracker and all the other Barbie movies. And weirdly enough, we had a family tradition of always watching Samantha, An American Girl Holiday on Christmas, or around Christmas, because that has heavy Christmas themes. So I feel like the in-between, I like movies like Twilight, where they aren't that serious, a little bit of rom-com, a little bit of comedy, but not specifically in one genre.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. And I think you also landed where, like, I would land. Like, when I think of this fall time leading up to Christmas, I want that, like, cozy romance story.
Yes.
So, like, I specifically think of, like, When Harry Met Sally, for some reason, to me, is a fall. Like, I know there's, like, it ends on New Year's and stuff, but, like, to me, that's, like, got fall vibes. But also, like, you've got Mail and, like, The Princess Bride. Like, these are just movies to me that are, like, cozy fall vibes.
Yeah, like the nostalgic 2000s movies, I think. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like those are the perfect ones to watch in the in-between.
Yeah. In the spirit of that, I wanted to find a cute romance story for today's episode. May not be specifically a romantic comedy, but we always find the comedy in these tales. So I'm sure we'll get both bases covered here. And as such, I've also decided to return to Edith Howes' 1913 book titled Maoriland Fairy Tales. Last time we dove into these stories, we recounted the story of how the moon was made, which covered Shining Eye's adventure of finding the fire that never went out. But this time we'll be focusing on the story of forbidden love between a prince and a fairy. So get your popcorn out and get ready for the cute tale of when Tawhaki met the SkyFairy. Once upon a time, there was a brave and handsome prince named Tawhaki. He was so famous for all his noble deeds that he was well known across the land. Eventually, word of how incredible he was spread to even the sky fairies. One fairy in particular heard the tales and wondered if the Earth Prince could be as handsome and brave as the rumors say he is. So, like a good investigator, she decided to go to the source and see for herself. She traveled down to Earth on a clear summer morning and searched for the prince. When she finally found him, she hid herself and watched him from afar. She was pleased to find that he was even more handsome and braver than she had heard in any of those stories. Before she knew it, she found herself leaving her hiding place and introducing herself to him. The prince was also quite taken with her, for no Earth princess was half as beautiful as she. In the days that followed, she would come down to Earth and spend all her time with him, talking together. Slowly, they fell in love with one another and were soon married. After they wed, the SkyFairy left her home above the clouds and happily lived on Earth as Tawhaki's beloved wife. While for us this is a classic story of love prevailing even when the couple are from different worlds, this had simply never happened before. When the SkyFairies understood what was going on, they were furious. The SkyFairies came down and confronted the couple, telling Tawhaki that she belongs with them and she has to come back home. Of course, she refuses this and tells them that she loves Tawhaki and that she will not leave his side.
This kind of reminds me of a story that we covered before called the Midsummer Bride, and it was when this duke or this lord, he rides into the woods and he manages to ride upon this group of fairies that were dancing, and then he sees one and she ends up, I think she ends up getting lost, or she ends up getting removed from the others, and then she becomes his wife. And she would spend all her time like listening to this music that no one else could hear, and she disappeared and went back to her people. And it was that weird kind of story of, do they love each other? Do they not love each other? Do they love each other but they can't be together? So it's this whole forbidden love between a magical creature and a human prince. And that story obviously comes from a whole tradition of stories like this. Namely, another one is the Ballad of Tamlin, where you have fairy creatures and you have humans who are trying to be together, but the supernatural forces are kind of stopping them from doing that.
Yeah, and I think like unlike other stories with supernatural creatures, there's something specific about fairies of like really keeping that divide. There's other stories like the Selkie where it's clear that the creature doesn't really want to be there for the most part. But in this one, it's so hard to tell what their actual wants are because they're so like mischievous, and then it's more the society saying like, no, this can't be done, like you have to leave, you can't stay with them. So they're always really interesting in that way. It's not really about the couple, it's about like what the rules are in place about like what are the rules surrounding them,
what's stopping them from being together.
And we love a good love story where they have to fight the odds. And it turns out the SkyFairies were not really interested in discussing this, as they just ignored her wishes and carried her off anyways.
Oof.
She fought back with all her strength to break free, and Tawhaki tried to hold on to her with one hand while he beat back the SkyFairies with the other. Unfortunately, the SkyFairies were too powerful, and Tawhaki was quickly pushed aside. Carrying his wife away back to their home, the SkyFairies told her that their kind cannot live on Earth and that she could never return to her husband. Unable to fight back, she called to Tawhaki and begged him to come find her in the sky. Tawhaki wept in despair. He wanted nothing more than to be reunited with his wife, but he did not know how he could follow her into the sky itself. So he wandered the land searching for any means to aid him. He spoke with noble eagles to see if they could help him, but they could not carry him. And even if they could not fly as high as he needed to go. He then started climbing the tallest mountains, but none were high enough to reach where his love was waiting. As it happens in stories such as these, he came across an old woman in his travels. She sat alone with a single white spider thread in her hand. Now, this vibe of someone just sitting, like, holding a weird object in a weird place, just unmoving is very much NPC vibes.
Yeah, there might as well be an arrow over her head or like a speech bubble being like, speak to me to advance to the main storyline.
Yeah, like he walks too close to her. And he's like, uh-oh, it's a cutscene. It's a cutscene. I'm losing control. Gotta talk to her. Oh, gosh.
And it's always an old lady.
Well, old ladies got a sense for adventure. You know, old men are usually like in a town, I find. They're not often in the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that just, old ladies, I mean, women do live longer than men.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just that they used to live with their husbands and their husbands died and they continue to live on, waiting to help lost princes and princesses.
It's like, well, he passed away, so now I can go on my adventure finally. And my adventure here is to hold a single thread in this like random area waiting for someone to show up. He asked the old woman who she was and what she was doing in this lonely place among the mountains. She told him that she is called the Old Grandmother and that she is here to hold this thread. Tawhaki now looked more closely at this thread and asked what the thread was for. The old woman studied him for a few moments before she explained that the thread led to the sky itself. If one wished to go to the Skyland, they could climb this thread to do so. The thread would be strong enough to bear one who attempted to do so, but the individual must be very brave, for if they looked back or lost heart in any way, they would surely fall back down to the earth and be smashed to pieces. So I guess Orpheus is out, or that he wouldn't be able to complete this, because we know how his story ended.
Yeah. Don't follow it.
I love my boy Orpheus, but because we just recently covered the tale and reading this, like, you can't look back, it's like, good thing this wasn't his story.
Well, we don't know yet. He might look back.
This is true. We don't know, but at least with Orpheus, we do know.
Well, with Orpheus, it's a classic tale of, human curiosity, not being sure, needing to reassure yourself, or even just, the comfort of or madness of looking behind you to make sure the person that you're with is there. But I do like the different parts that do relate to the kind of the idea of Catabasis or Orpheus. And I do like the idea of old people with strings and threads. I love that. I love the mythology of having fate and death be women who are weaving or who have the threads of life. You have, obviously the Greek mythology, the three sisters, the three fates, who have one who, measures it, one who cuts it, one who spins it. Very similar in Norse mythology as well. But this idea of weaving fate is so cool to me. And especially because it's women that are largely in charge of it. It just seems that something that most people would kind of ignore or be like, oh, that's useless, is so instrumental in so many different stories.
It's true. The old woman speculated that no Earthman would ever be brave enough to attempt such a precarious climb. Thankfully, bravery was one of the few standout qualities we know of Tawhaki. So, he was more than ready to take on this task. In fact, because of how perfectly this challenge seemed to be for him, he couldn't help but wonder if his wife had left this thread specifically for him. So he asked the old woman for the thread. The old grandmother was very pleased by the prince's courage, but she once again emphasized that any momentary slip in courage would lead to a very painful end. But Tawhaki reassured her that his heart was too full of love to have any room for fear. This convinces the old woman that he has more than enough courage for the task ahead. She decides to also teach him a song that he could sing if he ever feels his strength leaving him. He practiced the song with her until he had it fully memorized. After thanking the old woman, Tawhaki began to climb the spider thread to the sky. He could not help but notice how frail the thread felt as it swayed and swung with his weight. But he had great faith in the magic of the thread, so he continued to climb higher and higher. He passed the tops of the hills and then the tops of the mountains. Continuing on, he moved past the mountains into the cloudlands. He did not think of how anything could possibly go wrong when he was up so high, for all he could think of was how his wife was waiting for him at the top. Unsurprisingly, Cloudland was very, very cold and wet. It had been several hours of climbing at this point, and he began to feel his strength falter. Thankfully, he remembered the song the old woman taught him. He began to sing, and soon enough he felt his strength return. He picked up the pace as he felt new joy in his heart as he came to the first of the 10 Skylands. He pulled himself up through the flooring, and it cracked in all directions. As he did so, a great amount of water rushed out through the hole he created, falling towards the earth below. He thought that amount of water would surely flood the earth, but he dared not look back or even look too closely upon the fairy lake from where the water was coming from. Instead, he focused on getting to the 4th Skyland, where his wife's home was. So he continued climbing on. I do love how very casually he just created like a massive flood down below, but he's like, can't care. I have a kingdom down there, but, well, gotta get to my wife, yo.
I feel like this is, you know how when you look at clouds and they're perfectly formed and you're like, I want to be inside of that cloud, or I want to, magic carpet ride through that cloud.
Yes.
I feel like he's living that life, but it's almost like it's very different. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I like the idea so much of like going through clouds, but when you actually do go through clouds, you realize that it's just mist and cold and wet and not very great.
Yeah.
But I like this idea of him like pulling himself up the floors and keeping himself distracted. And as he goes from cloud to cloud, he's leaving like a mess behind him. But he doesn't know because he can't look back.
Yep. That's, one of the things of not looking back is you can't see the like all the disaster in your wake. Or the good stuff, even.
Mm-hmm. Can't even take in the view.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Although I would freak out if I looked down at that height. It'd be so high. Actually, it might be so high at that point where it doesn't really register it's high, so it might be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you do reach a point where you're like, all right, if I fell from like 20 minutes ago to if I fall from like now, it doesn't matter because it'll be the same amount.
I do remember that. I have attempted bungee jumping, and I was not successful at doing it because I felt like I could see everything down below me. But I also have gone skydiving, and that was fine because I was up so high when I looked down. I was like, this isn't real. So, and by the time you're already like falling, you can't really do much.
Yeah.
So by the time things get real to you, exactly. If I was gonna die, I was dying with someone else as opposed to bungee jumping. I would have been on my own.
Yeah.
Anyways, these have been morbid thoughts with Sparrow. But I'm here now, and it's all good.
I'm okay.
But thankfully, I wasn't pulling myself up like on a string to get up to the sky like that. Like his upper body strength, man, it must be incredible. Like they talk about his courage, the strength alone, like is something else.
You're like, I can see why she risked everything for this man with the great biceps.
So back to our hero, Tawhaki. So as he arrived at the 2nd Skyland, he met a snake-shaped fish. It seemed to be surrounded by hundreds of smaller ones that looked just like it. This caught his attention, and he boldly asked the creature what it was. The creature explained that he was the Eel King, and that he was looking for water, for the Skyland was quite dry. He asked Tawhaki if the earth fared any better. Tawhaki informed the creature that the earth was very wet right now, as water from the lowest Skyland poured out below when he came up. This delighted the Eel King. He bade his farewell and then took all his children to the earth below. And this is how eels came to the earth and live in the rivers and creeks. So, in the middle of all of this, we got an explanation tale of like where eels came from. It was because of this guy. Not that Tawhaki cared much, for he was still very much focused on climbing higher. On the 3rd Skyland, he met the Pukeko. The bird stretched out and did a double take in shock seeing an Earthman. The bird asked where he was going and what the earth was like these days. The prince explains that he is going to the 4th Skyland and that the earth is flooded at the moment. This time he leaves out the part where the flooding is totally his fault. The bird cries out in joy as this is exactly the kind of world it wants to live in. It then asks Tawhaki if the fairies know that he is coming to their lands. Tawhaki explains to the bird that they do not know, but he very much wants to keep it that way. The mischievous bird gives a grin and prepares to warn the fairies. Tawhaki sees what's happening and quickly grabs the bird's nose and begins pinching it so hard that it couldn't make a sound. The bird struggled and pushed back as hard as he could, but it could not break free. Eventually, Tawhaki gets the pukeko to agree to be quiet if he lets it go. Once he releases the bird, it flies through the hole down to the earth. From that day onward, Pukeko's nose has been red from all of the pinching, and all his descendants thereafter also hatched with crimson noses. Finally, Tawhaki's climb paid off as he reached the fourth skyland, where the thread ended. The place was beautiful, with lush green forests and brilliant flowers everywhere. Carefully moving around, he heard the sound of voices nearby a still lake. Keeping hidden, he crept closer to see a group of fairies trying to make a canoe. They were also the same fairies who had taken his wife away. Tawhaki knew they could lead him to his wife, but also that they would send him away if they saw him. Quietly, he sang the song the old woman taught him, but this time he focused on a disguise. Sure enough, once he finished his singing, his appearance changed to that of an old, poor man. He approached the fairies in the disguise, and the fairies were none the wiser. And instead of asking him any questions, they simply told him to carry their supplies and help them work. It's at this point that the prince wondered what his people would say if they could see him doing this servant work. But he knew he could suffer this if it meant he could be reunited with his wife. And this is like the only time he ever acknowledges that he is a prince and that there's probably people depending on him. But his only concern is like, what would they think if they saw me right now in this state?
And he's like, oh no. Anyway.
When the day of work finished, they all started walking home, and Tawhaki trailed behind, claiming to be a slow old man, but he would catch up. Once the fairies were out of eyesight, Tawhaki transformed back to his youthful self and finished building half the canoe. Then he transformed back into an old man and went to the fairies' home. There he saw his beautiful wife, who sat sadly by herself, not engaging in the happenings around her. And his disguise must have been good, for not even she recognized him. As much as he wanted to reveal himself to her right then and there, he knew he needed to finish the canoe first. The next day, the fairies headed back to the canoe and were astonished to find that half of it was done with the finest craftsmanship. Of course, none suspected the old man who had just arrived the day before. And that evening, Tawhaki did the same thing as the night before, so when everyone arrived the following morning, the canoe was completely finished. The fairies agreed that evening they would hide in the bushes and watch to see who was helping them with their canoe, which is exactly what Tawhaki was hoping would happen. So when evening came, the fairies saw the strong, handsome Tawhaki appear, which surprised everyone. Many said he needed to be sent back to Earth, but others argued that he could help with their canoes. And also, not to mention, this would make his wife very happy. While they debated this, they returned to the house, and Tawhaki ran to his wife. This time she recognized him right away, and she sprang into his arms. Seeing this, the fairies could not bear to keep them apart anymore, so they gave Tawhaki fairy powers so that he would never die. And he happily lives to this very day with his fairy wife. He became so powerful with magic that you can hear his footsteps in Skyland, which we call thunder. And when he lifts his arms, lightning flashes from his armpits.
Wait, what? Okay, wait, what? I was following along until that last bit. So why?
He just gets really powerful with his magic. There's not much more written in the original text. It's just like, Yeah, and he got really powerful, and you can hear thunder because of his steps, and you can see lightning because of when he lifts his arms.
Okay. I feel like that is such a weird power. How is he supposed to, like, maybe he reaches up to the top cupboard to grab something, and he's like, oh no, lightning. Our house is on fire now.
It also indicates that he doesn't walk that much, and when he does, he's also lifting his arms up, like, quickly afterwards. Every time.
So maybe every time there's a storm, it's just him working out.
He's doing his CrossFit.
He's climbing ropes.
Tell his kids, yeah, I used to climb a thread, but now I get to climb ropes.
And when I do, lightning flashes. Well, that's 3 explanations then. There's the eels, there's the lightning, and the thunder.
Surprise! We got explanation tales in the middle of our love story. I love it when there's a journey involved to go find your beloved that you're already, like, in love with. It's always a little weird when you're like, you've just heard of someone's beauty, so you're chasing after it. But it's always sweet when you're like, no, that's my wife. This also feels like a wife guy.
He does feel like a wife guy. And you know what? Usually in these kind of stories where you go on a quest, they often do something that's a little bit questionable. Or they're doing it because they're like, oh, I must have her. But that's actually his wife. Like, he's going after someone he's already married to. He's not like, oh, you know what? Sucks. Yeah. I'll go find someone else. I like the commitment to his wife.
Also, she was the one who originally pursued him, which is sweet. Like, she was like, I'm going to come for you. But then she was taken away. And then he's like, no, I got you. This time I'm coming to your house.
All I have to do is show them how strong and capable I am. And then they'll fall in love with me.
And then I can make a canoe, which is just a hidden skill that the prince has got.
I mean, I just think the sky fairies are like, well, he's not good for you. He can't be here. And then they're like, oh, wait, he's useful. Okay, he can stay.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, oh my God, his love for you is so great that we're going to let this happen. They're like, no, he's skilled and he can help us. They're thinking long term now.
But also, like, I don't know. I don't know how to make a canoe, but also, like, how desperate are you guys for this canoe knowledge? You know? I mean, I'm not going to argue too much because I want them to be together. They seem sweet. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I also like this idea of sky fairies. And specifically, I did a Google search for them, and I was just hit with nostalgia because I got hit with a bunch of, like, old books I used to read as a kid that were about sky fairies. And, like, also there was, like, a toy that I used to have as a kid of the sky fairies, all unrelated to each other. I couldn't find anything more, but it was a fun trip down memory lane.
Are you talking about the rainbow fairies?
Yeah, the rainbow fairies. But sorry, there were rainbow fairies, but one is named Sky. So that was what was popping up in my search. But I remember reading those. Did you read those?
The rainbow fairy books, and how, like, there's a different fairy for each, like, each story was about a different fairy, and there were so many of them. I remember there were so many that I feel like at one point I stopped reading them. I think our school library, had a limited amount of them, and then I would go to the public library and I'd get them. But they were always, do you remember how we had, like, Scholastic book fairs?
Oh, yes.
The Rainbow Fairy books were always there at the Scholastic Book Fair. And they always had little trinkets with them, or they had, like, collections. And they were always so expensive, I remember, because it'd be, like, 4 or 5 books packaged together with, like, little stuff attached to them, like charm bracelets or necklaces. And I remember being like, oh, my God, I want it, but...
They were expensive.
Yeah, they were. I remember, like, Scholastic book fairs were insane. You're going to put all of these cool things in front of children and be like, hey, would you like to spend $30 on a book? And you're like, no.
But the, going back to the Sky Fairies, the Sky Fairy toy, I'm not sure if you remember, is the one where it was like a little plastic figurine and they had 2 wings that would stretch out, and you would put it in, like, the little machine thing, and you'd pull it and it would go flying into the air, and it would usually hurt some kid, which is why it quickly got discontinued.
Oh, like the Fairytopia ones.
Yeah.
I remember the Fairytopia ones.
I don't know if mine was Fairytopia. I feel like I had the original Sky Fairy, which definitely was like, even as a kid, we're like, this is a hazard, but holy crap, is it fun.
Well, yeah, because I think they had like those bases and then they would go spinning up.
Yep.
And yeah, they were they were not.
Oh yeah, I got hit many a times, but I still have both eyes, so, all good. It was worth it. And with that, thank you so much for listening to my SkyFairy tale here in the Enchanted Forest.
I loved it. So, dear travelers, we hope you also enjoyed our tale of love, pulling on strings, and lightning from armpits. If you want to see the show notes, which include all our sources, please check out our website, talesfromenchanted.forest.com, or you can find us on most social media sites as @FromEnchanted or under the podcast name, including on Bluesky, TikTok, and Instagram. However, if you are old school like Sparrow, then you can always send us an email at talesfromenchantedforest@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you are enjoying in between Halloween and Christmas.
And remember, there's always a place for you in the Enchanted Forest.